For this video, we're in South Bay, Florida, which is in far western Palm Beach County. The city is about 45 miles west of West Palm Beach and 75 miles northwest of Miami. However, it's only 1.5 miles south of Lake Okeechobee, and in fact, the town is named after the South Bay of the giant lake. If you've seen the video that I've made on the nearby larger town of Belle Glade, South Bay can basically be thought of as an extension of Belle Glade. If you haven't seen that video, then make sure to check it out once you're done watching this one, and you can find my video on Belle Glade through my Palm Beach County playlist down below. Anyway, yes, South Bay is basically the same city as Belle Glade, only much smaller. Poverty dominates South Bay almost to the same level, and we can talk about that throughout this video. When it comes to the history of this town, I'll start off by saying that things were tough to come by. There's really not much on the internet on South Bay outside of recent crime that makes the headlines in the West Palm Beach TV market, like 3 injured following shooting or locating South Bay shooting suspect. However, I was able to find that South Bay was first developed around the early 1900s, or around the same time as the neighboring city of Belle Glade. In my Belle Glade video, I explained how the flat land south of Lake Okeechobee was all swampy and a part of the Everglades, but once humans built a canal system through the area, most of the land was able to remain dry. And after the land was drained by the canal system in the area, the only way to travel anywhere for a while around here was by boat. Anyway, it wasn't until 1926 when the railroad arrived, as that's what allowed the region to sell and trade their agriculture products. Not long after the railroad arrived in 1928, a hurricane came through the area and it pretty much swept away everything in South Bay, forcing the community to rebuild. In 1941, South Bay incorporated as a city, but the area has always been poverty-stricken and largely dependent on agriculture. And this next talking point is something that I explained a lot of in my Belle Glade video, so if you're interested in learning more about the history of this area, once again, make sure to check out that video, which is down below in my Palm Beach County playlist. But the Glades area has always seen thousands of migrant workers coming to the area every season to work out in the fields, and that's something that plays a huge role in South Bay's history. Migrant work has always been extremely low pay, and the living conditions around here for the migrant workers has never been good at all. Well, moving on now to the economic stats, we're starting to see some of the slums in town, but today there's just under 5,000 people who live in South Bay, and the population count has varied from 3,000 to 5,000 since 1980. The median household income is $40,000 per year, and only 6% of adults 25 and older hold a bachelor's degree or higher. The median value of owner-occupied housing units is $92,000, and the poverty rate is 27%. When it comes to the crime rates, they're actually not as bad today as they used to be, but there still could be some improvements, no doubt. The violent crime rate is 668 for every 100,000 residents, and the property crime rate is 1,500 for every 100,000 residents. Now, when we take a look at the graph provided by Macro Trends, it shows that the violent crime rate in South Bay used to be as high as 1,900 for every 100,000 residents back in 2005. For a city of less than 5,000 people, that is absurd. But today, that's no longer the case, as it's down below 700, so either crime is going unreported or things have gotten better around here in that matter. I will say, however, that it's concerning when you do a search for a town and all you can find initially is a bunch of crime headlines over the last year. Lastly, I'll say that South Bay doesn't have a police department, as it's ran by Palm Beach County District 11. Corruption is no stranger to South Bay either, as back in 2014, the former town manager Corey Alston pled guilty to grand theft and corrupt misuse of an official position after resigning in 2013. This dude stole $25,000 from the community, and the mayor, vice mayor, and city commissioner were all involved in the scheme as well. Additionally, the Palm Beach County inspector said that the town was unable to account for assets worth up to $315,000. Now, keep in mind that I found all of this from a 2016 article from the Palm Beach Post, so it's an older story, but apparently South Bay was under what Florida declares as a state of financial emergency that year, and it had been on that list every year since 1994. With that said, I was able to find an updated list of cities that the state of Florida declares as being in a state of financial emergency. This list was from 2021, and South Bay is no longer on that list. So at least there's that. Random note here to finish things off, as some people might know of South Bay for the town's correctional facility. The jail usually houses around 1,000, and it sits just south of town in the middle of sugarcane fields off of US Highway 27. Well, I really hope that it's okay that I didn't go there while I was in town to include it in this video. Well, anyway, it's that time, people. You can't always trust the people working for the city of South Bay, and you can't always trust that a gator will stay at bay. But you can always trust Chris's livability score. When it comes to the education, South Bay residents attend Glade Central High School in Belle Glade. It's nowhere near the best high school, but it's also not the worst. I've seen much lower scores in other school districts. It gets a 7 out of 20. Crime in South Bay in 2023 is better than crime in South Bay in 2005, so you have to give credit where credit is due. But it's still an issue, so we'll give it a 5 out of 20. Downtown South Bay doesn't exist, so that gets a 0 out of 20. The economy also doesn't exist outside of agriculture, that gets a 1 out of 20. Recreational opportunities is a bright spot for South Bay, as you have Lake Okeechobee to the north. You also have a 110-mile pedestrian trail around the lake, which is absolutely insane, especially when you consider the hot and humid Florida weather that is usually present. That gets a 10 out of 20. When it comes to the history, the most interesting things about South Bay would have to be the migrant and slave workers on the farms in the area. German prisoners of war were sent to Belle Glade to work during World War II, and Belle Glade is a stone's throw away from South Bay. It's really all the same area anyway, so history I'll give it a 9 out of 20. Next up is amenities, and there are very few amenities in town. Additionally, there's not that much more in the neighboring larger city of Belle Glade, so that gets a 1 out of 20. Cost of living is last, and that's not an issue here at all. As you can imagine, it gets a 20 out of 20. All in all, the Chris livability score for South Bay, Florida is 52 out of 160, putting it in last place out of all of the cities that I've done the Chris livability score for so far. It's even worse than Belle Glade. South Bay is a good reminder of how rural poverty exists more than most of us realize here in the United States. I've been to around half of the lower 48 at this point in my life, and I feel safe in saying that there's multiple South Bays in every state, especially in the South. It's kind of depressing when you think about these small rural towns and think about what the future might look like, but only time will tell. Well, do me a favor, as if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, as doing all of those things helps these videos destroy the evil monster that is the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell and select yes, so that you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy checking out some of the featured playlists on this channel. Videos with amazing insights on other places like what you saw here can be found in my Florida playlist, my American Hoods playlist, or in my Palm Beach County playlist. Last but not least, if you can't get enough of me on here, you can always go follow me on my other social media accounts, and those links are below. We'll see you next time. Peace.